Hey, good morning. My name is Samantha Maribal. I'm with Mocha's application team, and I'm doing our DesignShop talk today to see what questions you might have, try to get them answered for you. This is our last talk for the next 3 weeks. So we have today, and then I'll be off for most of June, and then be back at the very end of June. So let me know if you have questions while we're live. Please type them in on the chat. We're live on both YouTube and Facebook, so type them in directly in the chats. Don't send them privately. I don't see those while we're live. All right, they usually get sent to me after the fact. Anyway, I'll go ahead and get started with the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and we will go from there. Let me make sure both platforms are up. So let's see. There's Facebook, yeehaw, and there's YouTube. Excellent. Okay. And if you see me looking off to the side, I got another monitor over there where I keep track of the questions. All right. So an explanation of Bezier versus Freehand. Okay, well, when you go to digitize, you've got Bezier mode here or Freehand. Okay, the real difference is whether you're going to input points and control handles, left click, right click, change the curve using the little spline lines, they're called Bezier handles. Or if you're just going to use your mouse or a trackpad or something like that and just draw. Okay, so if I went to a complex fill and said right here, freeform digitizing, now I click and draw my shape, a jar, very badly. There you go. I got an ugly jar. I really hate that, but okay. Then if I want holes in it, I can draw a hole. Why I'm putting holes in a jar, who knows, but you know, it's decorative. There you go. All right, so I can draw holes, hit enter, give it a stitch direction, and now I have a big ugly jar that I drew by hand and my mouse, okay, just by clicking and dragging my mouse around. Now, whereas if I went to the Bezier mode, here I can hold my alternate key, so left clicks are straight points. Let me go back, do right click, left click, maybe my jar looks like this time. So I'm able to control the shape as I'm going along. Maybe that, and hit enter to close the shape. All right, again, if I want holes, maybe I want a perfectly, a perfect circle. So I can add perfect circles in there, 3 ugly ones. There you go. Now, here's the fun part. You see these little handles here? Those things are the Bezier handles, so I can pull on them and adjust the shape of the curve by moving them around, right? So I can move that accordingly to change the shape and have it suit my needs. If I want this to be a perfect curve, I can also hit the control key and drag it, and that will make it a perfect circle. So maybe I want to do that on both sides. If I want that to be a curve, I can hold the shift key down and click on it. So you basically have full control over the shape as you build it versus when you're freehand drawing it. I'm just scribbling, well, for me, I'm scribbling on the screen, right? So fill, freehand, draw an ugly circle. Hey, that's a character. I could put some eyes and a beak on it and make it a bird. Anyway, it's the only thing I've drawn that I actually like. Look at that. Anyway. So that's the difference. You've got the Bezier mode or freehand, and freehand is really just scribble on the screen. And if you're handy that way, or you've got one of those neat little trackpads, that works great, right? All right, so let's see, what else do we have? How do you use a digitized file that you purchased and change the colors? Okay, so when you open up a file that you purchased, let's look at this guy. All right, and this is an EXP. So EXPs, expanded format files like your DST or EXP, they don't save color information in them. So they load in these crazy colors, right? So if you want to change it to something pretty, over here are the different color changes. So if you want to see what it is, it's that part of the fish, right? So how it builds itself. You can go, okay, and for the life of me, I don't know what color this fish is supposed to be. I'm sorry for actually, I think I have an OFM where it's already colored. Yeah, there. I have one that it's colored. So now let's say that red, if you want to change these colors, all right, and you want to use the 1637 instead of that one, I can right click on it, go to colors, come over here and say, all right, I want to use 1637 instead of that one. Instead of the 1770, I want to use, what, 1848? Ew, that's not good. Oh, I already used it, that's why. And maybe instead of that one, I want to use the margarita lime. Okay, so I just ruined the pretty fish. But you see, you can change the colors to be whatever you want over here. You can make that yellow instead of there. It was better how it was. I'm going to hit undo. That's better. One more. So you can change these colors to suit whatever you want it to look like. And another way you can do it is, let's say that red is used multiple places. Instead of changing them in this project view over here, these are the active colors in the design. So let's say that kind of dark pewter, which it's only used once, but pretend it's used multiple places. So these are active colors. I can come over here and say, well, instead of dark pewter, I want that to be iron gray. And it will change all of that to iron gray instead of the dark pewter. Okay. So you can change active colors. That's a number of unique colors used in the design. Or you can change it over here, where if the same color is used multiple times, you'll have to change that color multiple times. Okay. So hopefully that helps with changing colors. So over here, again, I click on that, go to color, come over here, 1639, there, now that's red. This one, color, 1770, now that's the dark green. That one, color, no, 1848? Yeah, that one's better. I remember lots of color numbers, sorry. And then that one, I don't know, black, ew, white spots, there you go. All right, so you can change these colors. Another way, if you have, let's say, that lavender you want to be black and you happen to have black in this color thing over here, you can also click on it and say, okay, I want to see what that looks like in a green. And maybe this blue, I want that to be a gray or a black or whatever you want it to be. And you can play with the colors over here and get a general idea of, that's creepy, of what it looks like in the different colors before you pick the specific thread color that you have. Okay, once you finish all this, you got to save it as an OFM, otherwise the colors aren't going to save. It'll save as an EXP, and an EXP saves no color info, so when you open it again, guess what will happen? It will open up looking all crazy like this again. Okay, so that's all there is to it. All right, so what else did we have? All right, so we changed colors in a purchase design. I want to create an applique with a laser. How can I convert the design to an outline vector? So you don't convert the whole design. You just want the placement stitch, right? So in design, I'll show you what I do just for simplicity. I'm going to close that. So good morning, Kathleen. Thank you for joining. All right, I'm going to quick make a very simple applique. There we go. Okay, so I got a very simple applique here, right? It's just a circle. So what I do is I take the placement stitch, which is this guy right here, right? So I'm going to take that, copy it, and I just put it in a new file and hit paste. And then come up here and do File, Save As, and save it as EPS or SVG, and that saves it off as a vector. So that's all I do, and I open it in my laser software and cut it that way. Now keep in mind, depending on your laser, there's a kerf because lasers burn material. So if you cut this exact shape, it's going to be a little bit smaller than this shape because you're burning material away. So it's going to burn here, and depending on the beam size, it's going to burn material inside of it. So you have to find out what the kerf is from your laser manufacturer if you want to account for that. Generally, it's not big enough to matter, but if you know how many points that laser beam is, take it, divide it in half, and offset this line by that amount, and then you'll have an exact circle. So that is something you may or may not care about. you know, it really just depends on your applications and what you're doing, but that's really all there is to it. You know, take your placement stitch, save it off as an SVG or EP file. Like if I did this whole file, it's going to save off a whole bunch of stuff I don't need. I only need this guy here. So that's why I personally just put it in another file and hit save off from there and then close it. Yeah, so that's how I do it. I've got a laser out there. And I know my curves and I like to offset it. So it's actually a little bit bigger, but that's just because I'm neurotic. So I like it that way. Let's see, resources on how to make custom applique for sweatshirts. Well, for sweatshirts confuses me because applique is applique. So, and custom applique is another one. All applique to some degree is custom. So again, I'm a little bit confused, but applique, depending on whatever design you want, is just a matter of thinking through design and creating it. So whether it's a patch like that circle, oh, I just deleted it. That is an applique, right? So there's the placement, the tack down, and the satin. Let me go open, move that off the screen so you don't have to watch me navigate through random folders. Where is it? Sorry, should have opened it ahead of time. Instead I'm surfing my Dropbox looking for it. Milko, classes, applique. That one? Oh, that one's all right. Okay, so let's say you want to do this as a custom applique, right? So it's really just thinking through the design and how you want to lay it down, right? Do you want to do this as one piece of fabric, or do you want to build it with different pieces of fabric for each part? So let's say maybe you bought some really neat different shades of orange and you want to put these outer two as one and this inner as another. So that's how this actually was built. So I've got an applique there, an applique here, and then this one. So whatever design you want, you just have to create the different steps, whether you're using the applique tool, which is here. All right, so that's what this guy is. So let me go create the applique for this. So let's say I want those three pieces to be appliques. All right, all I did was hide the design, right? So we've got different ways we can do it. So I can come over here, hold this guy down, and just go straight to applique. And all right, I could trace it. I'm just going to go into operations, change element type, and say applique, and say add. So that creates that as an applique file. This whole thing is complete, right? Well, I don't really need this satin to sew, so I'm going to have to modify it, and I don't like what it's doing up there, but it created the starting point for me. All right, another way we could deal with that is take that same piece and go, all right, well, I want to create an applique for these two pieces and then that one. All right, I know how I want to build it, so I'm going to take this guy, hold shift, I'm holding my shift key down, and I click on this. All right, so what did that do? That created me a placement stitch right there. I can do the same thing with this guy, shift click. I created a placement stitch. So I personally like to do all my placement stitches as one, basically sew it as one color on my garment to start with. All right, so I just sew out where fabric's going to go. And now I'm going to recreate the actual applique, just tack the fabric down, cut it out, zigzag it down, and then do the embroidery over top, right? So I'm going to copy this guy, paste it, give it another color, and move that down there. There we go. And again with this guy, copy, paste, and then this guy here, oops, I don't want the fill. I want that stitch right there. Copy and paste. Okay, so all I've done is create a bunch of running stitches. All right, so let me hide this and these guys, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've hooped my item. In this case, it's a silly looking bag. All right, I ran my first stitch, and I usually do that in the color of the garment. I'm just going to change it here so you can actually see it. So that's just to show me where my fabrics are going to go. Then I'm going to go grab my fabric, lay it down in the hoop, so covering whatever piece goes first. Oh, I'm in the free form mode everything. All right, so let's say this is my scrap fabric that I lay down over top that piece. And now I'm going to copy that after this step, paste it. Okay. Oh, sorry, I already had it. So there's the stitch. So I sew all this, I lay the fabric down, I sew this step, and now that fabric is sewn down. I'm going to grab my scissors or my handy trusty seam ripper that's been modified and cut around the shape. If you have a laser, it's pre-cut, cool, just lay it inside the shape. Okay, so what does that leave me with? That leaves me with a piece of orange fabric sewn down to my bag. Okay, once you have it sewn down, what do you really need to do? We need to do a zigzag stitch around there, right? So I'm going to take the same guy right here, and I can use this guy here. Change element from one type to another, single line, add, change it to a tackle stitch, and there you go. So now I've got that piece of fabric held still to my bag. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with these other pieces, right? So there we go, there's that. I'm going to sew down the fabric for here. That's the step that I already created. So that just created me some fabric tacked down. I cut it out to the shape, and now I've got the same issue. I've got to do a zigzag stitch to hold it down. So I'm going to copy that same stitch, paste it. This time hold the control key and that single line button, change it to tackle. The shift is the exact same thing as using this. I'm just showing you an alternate way to do it. All right, so I've got that sewn down. All right, the last one, I'm going to sew this piece of fabric down. All right, so now that guy's sewn down. With this stitch, again, I need a tackle stitch. Copy, paste, control click, change that to tackle. And I like to give it another color. Cool. So now I've got a bunch of fabric sewn down. So now I can just go through and sew my entire design. And of course, this stuff doesn't belong here. So these steps are already built in above. So now I can do all the embroidery on top of it, and it creates my design for me. Okay. And if you ignore all this other random stuff I put on top, there you go. Okay. So creating your own appliques is pretty straightforward. It's just you need to have your design and think about how you want to build it, what materials you want to use. So whether it's going on a bag like this or on a sweatshirt, or let's say you're going to do an applique. Oh, here's another example. Let's just build it real quick. So for your sweatshirt, let's say you want to put a name, and you want that to be 8 inches wide, and you want that to be a scripty font. I don't know. That one's fine. All right, so let's say you want that. And the kerning is all wrong. Properties, do I have, nope, I don't. I'm just gonna move this stuff around because I'm neurotic that way. There, oops, undo. Select all those letters. I'm gonna move the H and the A over and the S over. All right, so let's say that's what I want. Again, I'm going to make that 8 inches wide. And let's say I want to put a border of fabric underneath this. Okay, so how can we do that? To create this as an applique design for my item. Okay, so I've got this. I'm going to use, you can use the border stitch. So let's use that one. That's cool. All right, so I'm going to do border. I'm going to do offset of like 50 maybe. Yeah, that looks good. And maybe I want 2 borders to be fun and make that another additional offset of 30. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So there. This part, I'm just going to delete these stitches because I don't want them there. And since I'm doing this on the fly, I'm going to make it look, there we go. Okay. So let's say we want this to be fabric underneath there. So how do we change that to an applique? Okay, so that means this fabric has to sew first. And then the rest of this will be done after the fact, right? Okay, so I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to go into change element from one type to another, walk normal, add, and move that as the first stitch. There's my placement. Copy, paste, Control or this guy. So control and click. Now it's a zigzag stitch or a satin stitch. Change it to a tackle of 30. And again, a different color. And then I've got my satin stitch. All right, so let's just put a vector in there so we have some fabric. Cool. I'm gonna delete this one because I don't like it. I wanna just take, there we go. Now, so I've got a placement, a zigzag, a satin stitch, and then I sew my lettering on there. Okay, so you can create things pretty quickly with whatever design you have of whatever you're trying to do, whether it's names, but this is a really quick applique. What's another way we could have done that? Take this shape, change element from one type to another, told it to be an applique, and click add. Well, now you don't have to think about it. So if I delete all those, it's already an applique now. So now all I have to do is go into the properties, and if I want to change something about how the applique runs, whether the width of the satin stitch, which is this cover stitch, the properties of the tackle, the properties, let's say the stitch length on the tack down is too big, like that. You want it closer. You can change all of that in these applique properties. Okay, so you got a lot of flexibility on how you create your applique. All right, so I did 2 wordy examples. Hopefully that helps a little. So this question came from this person as well. So constant bobbin breaks. I haven't been able to print, so embroider one item since I got the machines after the trainer left. That's concerning because the training should leave you comfortable with it. So constant bobbin breaks, I don't even know what to tell you because after training, it's everywhere I leave, they're usually pretty good to go. Best thing I could suggest for this would be to call tech support and work with them because, you know, those sorts of things, it might be as simple as just your active feed settings are not correct, right? So you might just need to up your active feed, or maybe your bobbin is way too tight. So your tension on the bobbin is too tight. But without seeing what you're sewing, without seeing the design, your hooping, knowing your materials, it's a little bit hard for me to help you troubleshoot that because I need more info to be able to help you. So the best thing I could suggest would be to call tech support, and they're really good at walking people through things. They can log into your computer and take a look at it and actually help guide you through the different things. So I would start there and see what where you can get with them, because it's just without knowing more information about what you're actually working with, it's a little bit hard for me to help you here. Talk about how to control jump files and DSTs. Cool, that's why I actually had this Brookie file. All right, so check this out. So you see all these little jump stitches here? So, and just go back to your question, you can see them up here. All right, so how can you manage those? So first off, let's look at what those are. So right here, if I zoom in on those, you can see them all here. There's those jump stitches. I've selected that element. Now I'm going to go over to stitches, and you'll see right there, there's a jump, jump. All these jump stitches are in here, okay? And they're all single jumps. So sometimes you'll see jump like that, but these are all single jumps throughout that. All right, so that's what JMP means, is jump. So what can we do about it? Under Tools, Options, right here, jump stitches for trim. In older versions, I think this was set to 5. The current default is 2. If I change this to 1 and hit apply and OK, nothing changes. But if I close it and reopen that file, 3D, notice all those jump stitches are gone. This one must not have been set to jump. It might just be a connector stitch. So there's no JMP programmed. So you're going to have to go modify that yourself. So how do you modify that yourself if you want to get rid of it? Well, first you got to find the element. So where are you? I don't know. Let's see. Not that guy. There it is. All right. So here's another way we can handle those. Yeah, it's just a connector stitch. So I can come over into expanded mode, click a point, hit a trim, and now if I put the trim there, you'll see I've got one, and then I've got little half stitch there. So again, I have to go back into expanded mode, click on the stitch I just added, and hit delete. All right, so you can go delete, get rid of those manually. So same with these purple ones down here if you want to modify those. Let's see. First I gotta find it. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Well, those have them too, but that's not what I want. Turn that guy off. Yeah, there they are. Okay, so on this guy, again, the same thing. These are actually programmed in as connectors, or running stitches in this case. See how they actually program to run over? Basically to minimize your trims, and they're small enough no one sees them. But if for some reason you want to get rid of them, you can go into expanded mode, add a point, insert a trim. And again, if I move that trim up, and then delete the stitch I just created, so not there, but that one. There you go. So you have different ways you can manage them. By far the easiest is tools, options, and right here. Like I said, 2 is what I leave mine at. That will convert anything that says JMP, 2 or more, it will automatically turn it into a trim. Okay? So that would be my suggestion on how to manage your trims. Let's see, what else? So we talked about that. Are there any oh, this was from last week that came in after the DS talk. Any videos on Trapunto? Yeah, the reverse puff I already showed. That I showed last week. Yeah, Trapunto is an older technique. I can show, which I still use a lot because I really like it. I noticed a difference between high-end brands and your embroidery. Is that because a different embroidery machine or a digitizing? A lot of the high-end brands use our equipment, so it's actually in the digitizing. So having a well digitized file and your machine running well, set up well, so using your proper this is a question that was typed in, sorry. So having proper stabilizers, hooping well, having your needles oriented right, bobbin tensioning. So knowing how to run your equipment well, and then having an excellent file makes all the difference in the world, between having something that's beautiful or having something that's okay but not as beautiful, right? Because a lot of high-end brands, like really high-end ones, I've been to a few, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say them, but I've been to a few of their shops, use our equipment. So it's really going to be making sure you have a very well digitized file and that you know how to use the equipment, right? So that's half the battle right there. What was I going to show? I lost. Oh, Trapunto. So I'll show you an easy one, right? So if I draw this, draw a box, and now I want to, actually I'm going to draw a letter and use the letter to create a reverse area in here. Okay, so I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to center them. I'm going to select this and then hold my control key and select that because I want to put a hole in this. Right click, I don't want any overlap. I'm going to say 0. So I'm going to now delete my M. I only use that to put a hole in this. All right, so I've got this thing, all right, with an M in it. So let's say I want to do this as, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's again a reverse, it's called Trapunto. It's a reverse applique kind of. Imagine hooping a towel, or something with fluff that's got a bunch of fur to it. And you want the towel part to stick out and the rest to be matted down to create like a subtle monogram. All right, I don't need a full fill like this, right? All I need to do is have it set up as Trapunto and then change my densities. So let's say I'm going to do Trapunto, trace border. I don't know what density. Let's try 30. Yeah, 30 will be all right. And then under underlay, I'm going to set my border margin to 0. Turn that one off for now. And you can get a pattern in there. All right, if I change this angle to 90, it'll be a straight rectangle. I would need this guy to be the exact same density as what I have on top stitching. So whatever I put here, I'd need this density the same to have perfect little squares. Okay, so when this sews out, it will tack down all the loops and then let the other loops stick up through here. Okay. Other ways you can do this, the same effect, but a little more interest, if you will, would be to change this to a decorative fill. Let's do the spin. I like that one. See, a decorative spin. Again, it does the same thing. It's going to sew down all the loops with a pattern this time. And now my fur or the loops on my towel will stick up. So that's another way you can do them. Okay. What other questions do we have? But yeah, this is called Trapunto. I've seen some monograms done where they've created like an oval. Oops, that's a circle. All right, let's do that again. Click, circle, left click, and drag. An oval with a monogram in the middle. You know, some sort of monogram, but the oval itself is done with that kind of open primer stitch type fill. So it's the color of the garment tacking down the loops, and then the monogram itself sticks through here. And a lot of times they've got swirly designs around it that someone digitized, and there's some built in, right? So you can come over here, custom designs, this guy, let's see, common designs, I don't know, there's stuff like that. There's monogram designs, I think, monogram decorations, excuse me. So there's a whole bunch that have been digitized that you can use. That's cute. Anyway, so, or you can use like these flourishes and create your own. They're all fun. Okay. What other questions do we have? Any? Ooh, there's the laurel. Click and drag. All right, I put it up there, now I'm gonna move it. Yeah, let's make this oval fit. I mean, we're committed now. There we go. And let's do a point here and a point there. Delete that. Maybe make that straight. I don't know. There you go. Oops. Alright. So then I can take this guy and come over into the underlay, turn it all off, hit apply, go over to stitching, change that to decorative. And what other shapes do we have? Pebbles? There we go. Pebble shape. That's not pretty, but you get the idea. All right. What other questions do we have? All right. Well, I'm trying to think. I think those were all the questions I had sent in. Let me scroll back up on the feed while I'll see if anyone has something to type in. No. All right. So again, I will be back at the end of June. All right. So we'll have a break for June, and towards the end of June, you'll see this start popping back up in the groups, and we'll be back to doing our lives on a weekly basis. So have fun sewing. I will see you not for the next 3 weeks, but the 4th week after that. All right. Any other questions before I call it a day? How do you do the group? How do you group the applique per type? Tack down. Oh, that's just rearranging steps, right? So where's my pumpkin? Applique process pumpkin. I deleted it. Boo. All right. So over, yes, all right. Tack down altogether. That only works. In general, I don't suggest doing that, because usually when you're doing applique, you're going to be putting down a bunch of different things. So if you tack everything down, it might be hard to trim up the materials. Now, if it works for what you're doing, they're spread out apart. Another thing, you can lay down the different shapes. That's all fine. All right, so let's quick create it again since I deleted it. All right, so I'm going to take this guy, shift click, this guy, shift click, this guy, shift click. I'm going to select all those, copy, paste, control, click, change that to tackle. You get to see me do this really fast since I'm just recreating what I did earlier. Copy, paste, change this to satin, and 40. Okay, Not that this is correct, but all right. If you want these all together, what you would do is over here in the different steps, you would find all your tack downs. So right here, these are the 3 tack downs. So imagine I'm going to move them around so they're not together. All right, so now they're not together. So I'm going to select the tack down, hold my control key, select the other. So there are my 3 tack downs. I just clicked on all 3 using my control key. I'm going to left click and drag them to the top and then make them one color. Okay, then I would find my tackle stitches, which, where are they? Is that it? Probably. Yeah, all right, so that is not it. There we go. Oops, I'm missing one. Well, let's just say those 2. All right, so those 2 are tackle. I'm going to drag them up to where I want them and then combine them to a color if I want them to be the same color. All right, and then my top stitching, which are these 3 guys here, I can grab those 3. So 1, control, control, left click and drag, move them together, make them a single color, and now they'll sew together. So now I only have 3 steps. All my tack downs are done as 1 step. All my tackle stitches are 1 step, and all my top stitching is 1 step. Does that help, Emmerich? And Sherry, thank you. I'm excited. We have quite the adventure planned. Okay, you have 2 elements overlapping. How do you remove it so you're not stitching parts that meet? Okay, so, no. I don't like that either. Close that. No. New file. All right, so I'm gonna draw a circle. And then I'm gonna draw a square in a different color. Let's do a square. Oops, a square. Except I lost the color when I did that. It's okay. All right, and then maybe I want a name. There we go. Now let's make that a different color. Made quite the mess here. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff overlapping, right? So I want to get rid of these blue stitches underneath the orange, right? So what you want to do is select where, so I'm going to select this piece, then that one. If I right click on the subtract elements, I can tell it how much overlap I want. Generally speaking, when things overlap, you want them overlapped, but not sewing all of that extra stitching, right? So, because if you do it line to line, the pull will cause you to have a gap through there, right? So I'm going to select this, then that, click on this. All right, so I said a whole lot of words without actually showing anything. So let's do that again. Select the item you want to subtract stitches from. That's step 1. Hold the control key down. Now click on what shape you want to subtract from it. So I want to subtract this square from it, rectangle. Then up here is the subtract elements. Check that you have overlap set by right clicking on it. I have it set to 10, which is fine. So yes, I'm going to have overlap. If it's set to 0, that's not good. So make sure you have some overlap. Now I subtract elements. So now this shape, those stitches are removed. All right, not that I recommend doing this, but let's pretend I want to remove the stitches underneath this name. Okay, again, subtract what you want to take stitches away from, hold the control key, select that text, and again, I can say subtract the name. So now I've got holes in the shape of my letter. Same with the orange. If I want to subtract the lettering from the orange, I'd click on that box because I want to take stitches away from that. Hold my control key down, click on my name, and say subtract elements. Okay, so look what that did. I took out those stitches out from under my text. I removed these stitches that were under the box, right? And all together, if you notice, there is some overlap to everything. So you see that the stitches go into my lettering, the stitches go into my orange box, so that you help avoid having gaps within things. Okay, Alexandria, does that help? So it's pretty straightforward. All right. Any Any other questions? Oh, let me show one other thing. So if I draw, all right. So if I want to, let's say you don't have the subtract button because that is level dependent, right? So I can do wireframe modifications myself by adding points here, grabbing that point and moving it down. So I didn't have the subtract, but I did the same thing, right? So now my orange shape has been modified to remove those stitches. Let's say this is an expanded file type, right? So we're just going to pretend you have to go into expanded mode editing here, and then I can use this guy, custom point selection, subtract the stitches I don't want, select them and hit delete, and now, again, if I hide this blue stuff, notice those stitches are gone. Now it created some jump stitches in there, and that's not really great, but you can still modify those. When you're dealing with expanded editing like this, you can get some weird effects like that. So it's always better to just use the wireframes and not this expanded editing, but you can do it. Okay. So, all right. So like I said, you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. Subtract is by far the quickest. Okay. Any other questions? All right, y'all. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Hope your holiday. Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay, I was just checking, make sure I didn't miss a question. Hope your holiday weekend was great. Again, we'll be off for the next 3 weeks, and I'll be back the 4th week. And have a wonderful month, and I will talk to you next time. Have fun sewing. Bye, everyone.